What's up, YouTube? ODST General back again with some Warthunder news. This isn't going to be a regular gameplay video, and I've decided I'm not going to monetize this just so we can stick it to Gaijin and say, hey, look, it's a free-to-play video. Yeah, so this is kind of a weird video. This is going to be a lot of talking, guys, and I do apologize for that because there's not really going to be a whole lot of gameplay going on. I might throw a video up in the background or something. But for those who don't know, it's been pure chaos this past week for Gaijin and Warthunder. Gaijin tried to pass further economy changes that, if anybody who has played Warthunder here will probably know, was going to further negative impact players, increasing vehicle costs throughout the tech tree. Now, of course, this would have lowered some of the tech tree costs, and that is the part Gaijin promoted, but by and large, most of the changes were going to be probably overall increasing price, and some of the changes were massive increases in price, as much as, like, I think 19,000 Silver Lions for a couple of vehicles for repair costs. So pretty freaking ridiculous, of course. Not new, but frustrating. With that being said, the player base decided to go ahead and start review bombing and leaving negative reviews. It wasn't really review bombing at that point, but players were leaving negative reviews. They were angry. They were voicing their issues in the news on Steam and on the Gaijin forums, all these other places, YouTube videos, all over the place. Gaijin rolled back the changes after just a couple of days. They were really on top of rolling back the changes, but, of course, the only reason they rolled back the changes after the fact was because there was very widespread anger about this. Now, if that had been it, I probably wouldn't be making this video. Gaijin, in their infinite wisdom, decided to put out the dumbest response I've ever seen. Like, this has to be, like, if there's PR people who work for Gaijin, they have to be dying inside having read this. This response is so terrible. It's been described by some people as tone deaf, but it goes beyond tone deaf. It's literally, it's ironic when you look at the state of Warthunder and you see some of the stuff in here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to read through this. But this has been covered by a ton of Warthunder YouTubers. And the community is, like, just so angry right now, especially now that this has come out. Warthunder on Steam has gone into overwhelmingly negative reviews recently, and its all-time reviews are now mixed from, I believe, mostly positive. So Warthunder's taking a bit of a reputation hit here with all this stuff, and especially because of this little response. Dear players, we see that you have many questions and observations about how the economy and progression work in Warthunder. We don't. We understand it very well. Some of us have been playing this game for a long time. I myself have been playing it 10 years. I understand very intimately both how a free-to-play game works and how Warthunder works. Kirill Yudenstev, creative director of Gaijin, is best suited to explain all this. I apologize if I butchered your name. I almost certainly did, and I do apologize. So this is the creative director of Gaijin, guys. Keep this in mind while I read this off. This guy is the one who wrote this article. It was probably translated by somebody else, but he's the one who wrote this up. He is the creative director of Gaijin. This is the guy that's in charge of, if not specifically Warthunder, the direction that all of Gaijin's games take. So Warthunder, Enlisted, Crossout, or whatever it is, all their games. Player progression is essential. You can't give a player everything at once because it will overwhelm and make the game very difficult for them, and they will just leave it either immediately or almost immediately. Okay, so I want to address this as I go along. Player progression is important. I don't fully agree with that. I come from a time where progression has been in games in some form or another for a very, very long time. Just going from basic, like, mission scores to level progression and stuff like that. I do think it's fairly important. More so recently, we've seen that in the form of, like, costume unlocks, equipment and stuff. In Warthunder, obviously, progression in this means unlocking additional vehicles, which increase in technology and advancement and stuff. I do think there's some level of importance to it, but I think first and foremost, a game should be fun. And if a game's fun, you don't need progression so much. You look at a lot of games where, like, say something Sea of Thieves, where your progression is a costume. You know, you get clothes. You don't get really much else in terms of progression from that, and yet it's a very popular game. Tons of people still play it. So progression isn't the end-all be-all of a game. I'll put that out there. I just want to respond to that. In terms of giving everything to everybody all at once, I do agree with this, but let's make it clear. Gaijin allows you, if you have enough money, to get everything all at once. You can skip straight to the end of the game and be playing in, if not top tier, near top tier vehicles. With radar and all this other stuff. You can jump in and get to an F4 Phantom. You might not get the F14 or the F16. You might not have the most advanced vehicle, but you're going to get really darn freaking close to it. So you don't have to actually progress through. You don't have to gradually learn the game. And they say that immediately through this, and it's not accurate to what they do. This has been tested by us many times in different ways. When applied to our game, later vehicles are almost always more difficult to learn and play tactically, in the controls and with its capabilities. Again, I can't disagree with that. It's true. But again, even though that is true, Gaijin does allow you to just skip to those vehicles. You just have to pay. Progression provides opportunities for gradual learning and engaging with players. Without it, the game will lose players right from the start. So, overall, I do agree with everything in that first paragraph, but again, while I do agree with what they're writing, that is not what in practice is happening in the game because of the way they've set their own game up. So again, this is already stupid right off the bat. The other thing is talking about players gradually learning stuff. Go into Warthunder and look at the tutorials. And then look at all of the technologies in games, stuff like the radar, commander modes on vehicles. Like, people don't know when their vehicles have commander modes. Players don't know how to set up the radar properly unless they play a lot and they're going to, like, outside YouTubers. Warthunder doesn't give you a tutorial on the radar. They don't give you a tutorial on how the commander mode works and stuff. Like, at least not in game. They might put, like, some videos out on their website and stuff, and they'll have occasional, like, features highlighting some of that stuff. You don't get those controls by default. They're not putting tutorials, and they're not putting those systems in front of you as the player. So even once you get there, gradual or you're paying, regardless of the way, you don't necessarily know about those systems. Gaijin could be taking much more active measures to ensure that their players are familiar with the systems that they're adding into the game when they add them, and they don't do it. Okay, so anyways, in addition, progression serves as one of the basics of how game makes money. Basically, players pay for acceleration of progression. Obviously, that's not true for every game. Free-to-play games, a lot of them do require progression. Well, they don't require, but they utilize progression as a means of limiting the player enough that they are highly incentivized to pay for the game in some form. Again, not every game, though. The fundamental difference between paid games and fair play free-to-play games is that you don't have to pay to play free games, and most players don't actually pay. Most Warthunder players, about 80%, have never paid a dime into a game, whilst playing for months or years. So 80% here. 80% that seems like a lot. That's a lot of players who haven't paid. I am curious with this, and I'm not disputing the number, but I am curious how they came to the number, because there's a lot of different ways you can come to a number like this, and I suspect that they've probably just looked at their total player base and they're going, everybody who's ever played War Thunder, only 80% of the accounts that we have ever actually paid. Is that including just active accounts, though, or is that everybody, including people who signed up for an account for War Thunder and either never played 1 or 2 days, a week, whatever, and then dropped in, never came back? Or is that just people who are actively playing or play for, X amount of time to get into that? I'm really guessing that in order for that number to look as astonishing as possible, they've probably gone out and they've just included every account who's ever signed up for War Thunder, and then they ignore the fact that those people signed up for the account and then just never played. Or never, like, they only played like a week or a month or whatever and then quit. And yeah, anyways, then that also raises the question, how many of those people, you know, if they did quit because of, you know, the grind and stuff, because that is what's brought us here to this, right? So anyways, many of those players who have paid for something in the game don't pay every month, and sometimes not every year either. Nevertheless, all of the maintenance to the game, all of its development, servers, and support is provided by those players who pay. Again, perfectly fair. I will point out, Ash put out a video covering this topic already. He did point out that, at least based off of his math, based off the percentage of a cut he gets whenever a sale's made through him specifically, Gaijin's made approximately I believe he says $125,000 just through him. That's not including all of the other content creators who have payment links. And that's definitely not including what's probably, honestly, the majority, the vast majority, which is direct sales through Gaijin without the content creator links that have, like, discounts or promotions or whatever. So that is something to bear in mind. Like, Gaijin does, yes, they pay a cut of, like, to content creators and stuff, but there's a ton of content creators with, like, links that get them bonuses or whatever that people are paying through Gaijin, and, like, Gaijin's making a bunch of money directly. So, something to bear in mind when reading that, too. In any game, players play only when they have fun. I don't agree with this. Yeah, ideally players should be having fun while playing a game, but there's a lot of reason people will play a game. People will play with their friends. You know, people might start off having fun, but then you got sunk cost fallacy here, which I think a lot of us who play Warthunder got this little bit of, if not Stockholm syndrome, this sunk cost fallacy thing going on, where it's like, I've played this game for 10 years of my life. I've invested thousands upon thousands of hours into War Thunder, and I just recently signed up to Steam, so I don't even actually know the real number because I don't know how to check that through the Gaijin launcher, but it is a lot of time that I've played War Thunder. It's hard for me to look at this and go, I am so sick of this game that I am ready to quit playing and kind of invalidate all that time I sunk into it, right? And that's probably the mentality of a lot of players. So players will play a game even when they're not having fun. But in a free-to-play game, players only pay if the game really entertains them. Again, that's not true. By and large, it probably is, but there is going to be a lot of outliers. Again, people will buy for starter boosters before they've even played the game. You know, stuff like that. Again, if their friends are all, say, buying, like, cheap premiums, they might buy a cheap premium, too, just because they want to play with their friends and have the same vehicle or whatever, even if they really don't like the game. You are going to have a lot of cases like that, especially if the stuff is kind of cheap and easily accessible at the start of the game. Yeah, you're probably not going to be selling a $70 jet to somebody who's not having fun, but starter packages, stuff like that on the lower end, absolutely you could. So I don't agree with that either. The player is already playing, already having fun, and pays if they want to support the game or try something new, which is at the same time not necessary to enjoy the game. Yeah, but again, here we are in War Thunder, and the reason everybody's review bombing you guys and boycotting and stuff is because they're not having fun. And it's costing so much for these people to try and play and progress that they have to buy a premium account, and even then, people with just premium accounts, such as myself, are even finding it difficult to progress at this point, and are having to now look at, like, premium vehicles and stuff and see if that's maybe an option, and they're being forced into buying that just, again, to progress. And that's not just the free accounts, which are not even able to get nearly as far as that, so something for them to think about. Anyways, hence the unobvious conclusion, the less you have to pay to play the game, the more differently priced paid options it should have. I actually do agree with this one to an extent. If not, I shouldn't necessarily say differently priced, but at least different avenues of paying or people being kind of incentivized to pay. Because here's the thing. I don't think that War Thunder shouldn't be making money. I just think that if you read through this article here, you will see that Gaijin themselves say, on paper at least, that people should be having fun, people should be able to play the game for free, and there should be all these other criteria met, and that's not really happening. And I do want to see Gaijin succeed, though. They gotta make money. They gotta make, one, they gotta make enough money to actually run the server and pay their employees to continue development. And two, they've got to make a profit at the end of the day, because that's why they got into this. It's a business. So yeah, anyways, they see have differently priced paid options so that those who can afford it can spend more, and those who can't or don't want to can pay or can play for free and have fun. Again, we've already kind of broken down the second half of that, but those who can afford it can spend more. Now, it says can, but obviously they're designing this in such a way that those who can afford to spend more will essentially be incentivized to spend more, right? And Gaijin does this through negative incentivization in the form of repair costs and stuff. They make it so difficult to progress that you really do need to pay for premium vehicles. You need to pay for the premium accounts and stuff to actually progress. There are many progression and economy options in free-to-play games. Not all of them are suitable for our game because Warthunder is about real combat vehicles, which are not equal, differing in powers and capabilities. I've tried this video a couple times. I'm struggling with this video, guys. There's something about it. It's a hard one to record, but I wanted to cover this. I'll just say that yes, not all vehicles are balanced and everything, and that does create some unique issues in terms of Warthunder because of the asymmetrical nature of the vehicles. Gaijin could, if they were so inclined, do a better job of this. I'll just say that they could put out more similar vehicles at a same time, you know, so you're not just getting one massive battleship that's more powerful than the rest, or one top tier fighter that's got better radar range or anything like that. They could add a couple of them. They actually, again, they kind of weaponize this aspect of their asymmetrical vehicle nature to incentivize basically a meta for the game. At least this is my personal belief. They basically take the vehicles so that there is one vehicle that is in particular well above the rest, and players are kind of pushed towards getting that vehicle because it is statistically and in-game so much better than every other vehicle it goes up against that it's stupid not to get that. And so people will either pay to get the premium, or they'll pay to boost Silver Line research, or whatever else they need to do to get that vehicle. To quickly and roughly summarize the general principles of economy and progression in our game. Vehicles should be unlocked gradually, from simpler and older to more complex and later. Again, though, in theory, right, not how the game works in the case of anybody who buys a premium, at least. Yes, if you're a free-to-play player, this is true. On paper, it's a great idea, right? Players should understand the vehicles, even if you are getting into the game. And that's a whole other discussion to be had. If you're seeing the more recent trailers where it's like A10s and LAVs and stuff, and that's what's drawing you to the game, it sucks to go through World War I tanks and have to play for months or years to be able to get to the stuff that you saw in the trailer that they keep putting out to draw you into the game. There's a whole other thing there, but there is something to be said for progression. But again, Gaijin doesn't actually care about the progression because they let you pay to skip it and they don't put out tutorials for it. So this is really, again, if they do genuinely care about the progression, they need to actually show that in the game by putting effort into progression, actually teaching players gradually how to use these vehicles and stuff, because it doesn't as it stands right now. And Gaijin can make more of an effort there, but honestly, there should be a means for players to potentially get into the stuff that they're actually promoting too. And there's ways to teach it, because at a certain point, yeah, the vehicles end up being a lot different. Fighting at top tier is a much different thing than fighting at like lower mid tier. It's a different beast, use different tactics and all that stuff. So something for them to consider. The total time to get the first top vehicle should be a balanced, not too long, not too short number of game hours. This one's triggering a lot of people, and that's obvious why. Well, one, they don't tell us the number, and they probably never will. I would love to see the number for this, what they consider a balanced number of game hours. For me, running just a premium account, I can knock out a premium vehicle in probably 4 or 5 days of heavy grinding, I can get a new top tier vehicle. That's just grinding out one single vehicle, and it takes me about a week on premium. My friends with premium and event vehicles, especially if they have a decent game or two, you know, a few, well, not a decent game or two, but, you know, a decent day or something, they can knock out a premium in like a single day, maybe 2 days. But when I was free to play, and I've been running premium since like 2020 now, but when I was free to play, this would take me probably a month to unlock a vehicle of slightly more casual play. And I played the game to that point for like what, 7 years or so, I would guess, and I had not gotten to the top of a single nation after 7 years, right? And that's part because you've got, you know, multiple tech trees, you've got ground, you've got air, you've got naval. Not everybody plays all those modes, and you've got different nations and stuff too. And unless you're just putting your nose to the grindstone on like a single tech tree and just going hard on that all the time, it's very difficult to progress. Not to mention that silver lines and stuff and actually buying the vehicles once you unlock them. So unlocking them is usually much easier than actually affording them. That's a whole other ball game at that point. So I would love to hear, though, what Gaijin thinks is not too long and not too short number of game hours. Is it 500 hours? 1,000? 2,000 hours? What is a balanced number of game hours to reach a top vehicle? The player should, at the beginning of the game route, while mastering the game, get new in-game equipment often enough. So I believe what they mean here is at the beginning of the game route is basically earlier on, the players get more technology. So you have kind of a curve, and a lot of free-to-play games have this, where you get, at the start of the game, a lot more unlocks, you get more vehicles faster, you get technology faster for those vehicles, and then it tapers off, right? So you play Tier 1 of Warthunder, you can easily knock out Tier 1 in a single day for all of the vehicles at Tier 1. Few decent matches. Tier 2, honestly, some players could probably knock out Tier 2 just as easily. Then you get to Tier 3, and it starts tapering off really fast, right? So it starts going up and getting much more difficult to progress very quickly at that point. But you basically, at that point, you've gotten into, you know, 2 tiers of vehicles, and you've unlocked stuff very, very quickly at that point. So you're already kind of hooked on it because you've unlocked all this stuff, and then they start tapering off. And again, War Thunder is not the only game to do this. Most free-to-play games have something similar, so I won't begrudge them that if that's what they're actually getting at with that, which I believe is what they're kind of indicating there. The game has to earn money, otherwise it'll be closed. And yeah, we've covered this already. I do agree with that. It must make money without a paywall. Yeah, except for the issue is, again, there's not a hard paywall. There isn't a point where you just say, hey, you guys aren't allowed to play anymore because you haven't paid yet. But you do prevent people from actually progressing because silver lines are being lost on average games, and people aren't able to not only not progress, they're having to go back and play like biplanes and stuff like that so they can grind money back out, or they're having to like play, you know, pay a low tier naval. And again, this is incentivization to go out and buy premium and wherever else to actually progress. But you know, if you're saying that you want your players to be able to actually play for free and go through the game without a paywall, that's not in practice what's happening. So you can play indefinitely without paying anything. So there's no deception that the game is free when in fact it is not. So yeah, I mean, again, we know the game's not free. We know the term, well, most people know the term free to play means that, you know, you guys still need to make money, right? It's not just something that you guys are doing out of the goodness of your hearts. We understand it's still business, but if in reality you guys are saying players need to be able to play indefinitely without paying anything, that is not in practice what's happening. Income should provide everyone the opportunity to play a multiplayer game with multiple modes and features. Okay, again, fair. You know, that's in, I guess. You know, anybody can go into any mode and feature and play for free, so that's reasonable. Progression in the economy should, as far as possible, provide a variety of vehicles encountered in battle, otherwise it's just boring, i.e. there should not be too many farming vehicles, and especially if they're statistically stronger in battles. Otherwise, only the same popular vehicles will appear in battle. Now, this point here with this one, this is up there with, like, the top vehicles shouldn't take too long to get. This is one of those things I just want to smack my head into the desk as hard as possible because it is so stupid. I just want to give myself brain damage so I don't have to deal with the stupidity of it. Gaijin clearly, and this shows this creative director doesn't seem to actually play Warthunder, because if he did play Warthunder, he would not put this into the game, because even if you can just go through and have any vehicle you want to test out at any point, there is a ton of points in the game. Not every tier, but a lot of points in the game and a lot of modes where if you go in, there's going to be certain tiers that are just dominated by a single one or two vehicles. You go into rank 5.0 in Naval. Any of the 5 people who play Naval, I should say. You go into 5.0. Moffat, 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 Fort Knox, Moffat, Moffat, Fort Knox. Something like that. If you get up tiered, it's Moffat, 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 Fort Knox, Helena, 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 Helena. And then, like, Prince Eugen or something. A couple Prince Eugens on the other side because they're the German premiums and they're pretty similar. But it's just absolutely dominated by the same vehicles. And it's not just naval. It's not. This happens in jets. It happens in tanks. You get into tanks. Go to the top tier US. M1A1 aim, M1A1 aim, M1A1 aim, because it's a squadron vehicle that lets people skip over the stupid amount of grind in the game. Go to the other side. Terms T, Terms T, Terms T, KA50, 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 SU25K, SU25K. Just the whole team, just running those vehicles all over. Because, you know, only 20% of the player base somehow has paid for the game, but seemingly like 80% of the other team all has the same vehicles, it feels like. It's ridiculous. They're saying there shouldn't be vehicles that are farming vehicles, but this is a thing. Gaijin incentivizes it. Again, Gaijin puts these premium vehicles in. They put them in some cases with massively larger boosters than other vehicles, and they're already strong vehicles in some cases. Again, K50, the Moffat on the US side. You know, it's dumb. This is essentially the exact opposite of what Gaijin as a company monetizes. Like, they monetize by doing the opposite of this. They promote the farming vehicles and the statistically stronger vehicles as premiums. And then they charge people for it. So that's really frustrating to read that one. This next one's up there too. In a game with so many vehicles and modes, it is impossible to manually adjust the in-game economy. Factually not true. It's not impossible. More difficult, certainly, but not impossible. It's important that obey specific rules and manual changes to them would skew a vehicle's effectiveness. I can see why a company would want to follow a set of specific rules, because then it makes it easy for the company to say, hey, yeah, the might not be perfectly balanced, but it's not our opinion or whatever. It's not our personal bias that's skewing the vehicles. It's just how it is. And that's what Gaijin tries to do. But I gotta be honest with you guys, Gaijin, if you think that this is working, it's not. At least if that's what your thoughts are, so that you're thinking people aren't going to be looking at this as like personal bias that's being avoided. People already think that there's bias in your game. Russian bias is a very, very common phrase in the community, and even if you're just using your statistics that you guys won't share, you know, they're not really helping you. And you say you're trying to avoid outliers and avoid making some vehicles bad and others much better than average. Regardless of whether or not you're doing this manually or you're just using your statistics, this is already happening in the game. There's already bad vehicles. There's already statistically much better vehicles. And again, the statistically much better vehicles are typically premiums. The bad vehicles are usually non-premiums, but there's very specific vehicles in some cases that are considered very bad. So take, for instance, the B-29, which you guys had planned to lower the price on. But if you guys would go in and just manually lower the price instead of changing the entire statistics, you could take the couple of vehicles that are stupidly expensive, like the B-29, that really aren't that good at the tier they're at in the current battle rating, and you could just lower their price so that players aren't getting punished for taking a slow, massive prop bomber into a game with jets that are much faster into a mode that doesn't benefit them from dropping bombs. It's mind-boggling. There's definitely bad vehicles in Warthunder already, usually because of the cost. Now, even if the B-29 wasn't an arm and a leg when it died, it still wouldn't be a great vehicle, but people might take it out just for the fun of taking out the B-29 because it's a cool-looking plane and it drops a ton of bombs. But it's not really good. It is a bad vehicle regardless, but you're, on top of it being a bad vehicle, you're having people avoid it because not only is it bad, it's bad and expensive when you lose in it. So yeah, that's again contrary to what's actually happening in the game. So we have this one contrary to what happens in the game because they again let people buy premiums. Total time to get to the first top vehicle for the average player, definitely contrary to what's in the game. There's going to be a few of you guys who might argue this, who watch this, and go, well, I didn't have any time or issues playing, but I would have to ask, like, where you guys typically place in the leaderboards on most games. Is it in the top half of the leaderboard, top 3? I think for most people, this is not a reality, and especially if you're free-to-play, you know, some free-to-play players, and again, my own experience included in this, you're potentially looking at years of consistent grind, especially if you're a slightly more casual player, too. And yeah, there's got to be a balance, and I get that they're trying to incentivize players to go out and buy premium, but yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Again, that's fine. I don't disagree with that. This is accurate to the game. So, but yeah, the first 2 so far, so 2 out of 3. Gaijin does the opposite of. Yeah, and again, this one's kind of a little bit of both. There is a bit of a paywall, so I'm somewhat incentivized to say it, but the soft paywall, I'll give Gaijin the benefit of the doubt and say they can have this one, even though debatably I shouldn't. Progression and economy should, as far as possible, provide vehicles encounter. Again, we just covered this. There's tons and tons of tiers, at least throughout, you know, various areas of the game where it's just dominated by 1 or 2 types of vehicles. So that's not accurate. So out of the 5, 3 are now the opposite of what we see in game in terms of their bullet points. And in a game with so many vehicles modes, it's impossible to manually adjust in the game. But yeah, basically the big takeaway from this is making some vehicles bad and some much better than average. This is again already untrue. This is already a thing that happens in the game. There's, again, bad vehicles. We covered some of those. And much better vehicles. Again, those are typically the premiums. So we've got 6 bullet points. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of those 6 is the exact opposite of what happens in the game. Again, this is the creative director of Gaijin, and he's putting these bullet points down. And they don't realize that, like, this is not the reality that any of us players face, and it's amazing, it's mind-boggling that they could put that on the paper and then not see that that's happening in their own game. And I think part of the issue is that maybe as a developer, you know, they have access to all the vehicles and they have their test accounts and everything, and they go in with specific vehicles. They need to just go in, and these Gaijin guys need to take a month off of work or something to go out and just try to play a free-to-play account and grind up. You know, if you take a few of them and take them into, like, different nations, different battle modes and stuff like that. So, like, have one guy go into, like, ground on the U.S. side or something maybe. Have one guy go into, like, I don't know, German naval or Japanese naval or something maybe. Or no, even better yet, the Italian naval. Have another guy go into French air or something, for instance. It doesn't matter specifically what, but just have them literally all start at the bottom on free-to-play accounts and play for a month, casually. So just say, hey, 2-3 hours a day at most, you guys can play. That's actually not even that casual for most people. Casual's like maybe an hour a day, hour and a half. 3 hours a day is quite a bit. But again, trying to give them like any form of benefit of the doubt just to make this a little bit more fair on them, and I bet they would still have their minds blown. So anyways, about once every couple of years, we revise it globally as new vehicles are added to the current trees, and the rest of the time, to a lesser degree, correct the economy using accumulated statistics. So they're past corrections to the economy, and I used big air quotes for that you guys can't see, have had very similar reactions to this. They haven't led to the mass review bombings and threats of boycotts and stuff like that. But they haven't really been well received. They haven't been corrections as far as the community is concerned, and Gaijin seems to not realize that. Like, it's generally been very well disliked. In terms of revising the tech tree and stuff, because some vehicles were unfolded during this, and if you guys aren't familiar with the term unfoldering, basically some vehicles in the Warthunder tech tree are in folders. So if you have two vehicles that are very similar, but one maybe has like a better engine or slightly better weapon system or something like that, it might be, instead of having to be forced to be researched through it, it was in a folder. So if you wanted the slightly better version of the vehicle, you like the vehicle and you want to use the other version, you could research that out and you could unlock it, but you weren't required to do so to continue to progress on the tech tree. So they took them out of those folders and forced people to progress through that. So there was some shifts in the trees and stuff, and so that's kind of what they're touching on there. That's always been kind of a mixed bag. Obviously, players have been asking for BR decompression and stuff for a while. Sometimes the BRs go up, sometimes they go down. So the BR has always been kind of a up and down thing in terms of how it's gone with Gaijin. Definitely, I think, as others have pointed out, there would be a lot of benefits for them to spread it out, but Gaijin's concerned about queue times for matchmaking, which is kind of fair, although you know, Gaijin, as far as I know, has never put out a poll asking players how long they'd be willing to wait, and you don't necessarily need to get into a game in 30 seconds. It's great if you do, but, you know, most other games you have to usually wait like a minute or two before you actually get in anyway, so I think most players would be willing to probably wait 2, maybe even 3 minutes on average. A lot of players, especially naval players, were spending 7-8 minutes waiting for matches, and they still waited, and you still could get into the matches. You had to wait a lot longer, and it kind of sucks having to wait that long, but players were willing to do it. So I think having a much shorter wait time, if it allowed them to spread out the BRs and stuff, would be very widely accepted. And, you know, obviously, the corrections to the economy, we touched on that. People don't consider those corrections. The current progression economy system is not the only possible system for game economy principles. There are also, for example, systems based on randomness or on the exchange of virtual objects between players. So here's one thing. Nobody that I've seen in terms of the videos have really covered this second sentence here. Now, they're talking about the economy system. In terms of them making money, Gaijin as a company, these systems already exist in Warthunder. They're taking kind of a shot at it, some people believe. But these systems do exist in Warthunder, even though they're saying that they're potential examples. Systems based on randomness. That's a fancy way of saying loot box, right? Loot boxes are systems where you open a box, and through RNG you get stuff. In Overwatch 2, you're getting skins and spray paints and stuff like that. You don't know what you're going to get. You spend your money on the box through the in-game currency, and you unlock what you unlock. Not a great system for Warthunder's tech tree. Obviously, you don't want to just unlock some random vehicle. You want to unlock the very specific vehicle that you're going for. But loot boxes do exist in Warthunder. This is monetized. You buy a key, you get random spray paint or decals or icons or whatever. I actually can't remember if icons are actually in the loot boxes. But yeah, you get stuff like decals and decorations and stuff like that, right? So, systems based on randomness. Already in Warthunder. Or on the exchange of virtual objects between players. Again, not in the standard game. You don't have players unlocking vehicles in the game and then trading them off to other players as base tech tree vehicles go. But event vehicles, there is a marketplace for players to buy and sell event vehicles, as well as stuff like decals and icons and various other things like that, again, are on this marketplace. So, exchange of virtual objects between players, again, already in the game, already being monetized by Gaijin, so, you know, That's a thing. However, without even considering limitations on different platforms associated with these options, any such significant changes are unlikely to be well received. So there's a couple things to break down here. One is, this is a fair point, and this is something that the player base does need to consider when making suggestions. There's limitations on different platforms, and not just different platforms, but different countries are going to have different restrictions on this. So there's restrictions regarding loot boxes on various different platforms, so like Microsoft or PlayStation, you know, where they're on the PlayStation, they're on the Xbox. They're going to have their rules and policies that Gaijin needs to abide by if they want to remain on those platforms. So that's a fair point. I will give them that. And again, there's also the federal rules and, you know, the rules of whatever countries and stuff that they're operating in. So state and country laws and stuff, those are all needing to be factored in and stuff. But with that being said, you know, I am sure that they can make it somewhat modular, and I'm sure they probably already do to some extent for varying countries. The second part here, any such significant changes are unlikely to be well received. According to who, Gaijin? I will say this. Making big, massive, sweeping changes to your game progression, to your economy, there is always a inherent risk there. I will fully agree to that. You look at Star Wars Galaxies, and they massively overhauled their economy, and it killed their game. With that being said, a lot of other games do go through sweeping changes very similar to this, and they can come out stronger. You look at another MMO, Final Fantasy XIV, I believe, did something similar. They had massive sweeping changes to their game, and their game went through a renaissance, and now you have to wait for servers to open up so that your friends can actually join and play with you, because there's so many people trying to play it that they're maxed out on players, apparently. So that's not always true, and as far as I know, they haven't polled or they haven't really checked with the community, and it's hard to say whether or not the community would reject or approve any such sweeping changes without actually putting out some ideas to the community to kind of gauge their reaction to even the concept of some of those changes. But just out of hand dismissing it and saying the community wouldn't like that and wouldn't be well received you can't actually do that and be certain of it. It's not really fair to the community to say that they're not going to like something when you're not the community. And, you know, it just comes off that you guys are trying to avoid actually doing this. I don't know if it's like a genuine fear of failing, or if you're just using that as an excuse to avoid even trying. But again, at least bare minimum, put out some concepts. Listen to the community. There's a ton of other content creators putting out videos saying, hey, this is what you guys can do. Here's some ideas to fix the economy. Here's some different ways you guys can work on monetizing that are maybe a little bit more friendly to the players. Listen to that stuff, right? And genuinely consider that. See what you guys think would work for you, would still make you guys the money you need to make to operate. And then put that in front of the community and be like, hey, we're going to take a poll. We're going to put this out on Steam, on our Reddit, our page, wherever else, whatever third-party platforms, get this out in front of as many players as we can. Heck, in-game if you need to, that takes them to a page. And take a genuine poll and look and see what your community is saying by and large. And yeah, if the community dislikes it, even in concept, fine, you know, don't go that route. But if the community does, then yeah, do it, because you can check to see whether or not the community is going to like or dislike something before you actually put it out. At least you can in theory check. I mean, obviously, on paper and in practice is two different things, and so they might put something out, and on paper when they said, hey, let's do this, it looked really good, and then in practice it's a completely different system. But not doing anything is not really doing the community any favors right now. The community's pushed to the limits. Actually, they're now pushed beyond the limits. It's just they've been pushed to the limits for so long now that I don't think going back or backtracking is necessarily going to solve the issue. So after all, our community is formed of people who accept the current economy and progression and basic principles, or rather they may even like it in general. I don't know that there's anybody who likes it. So I'll say, they say in basic principles, so they're saying the most basic concepts for the economy, the tech trade and all that stuff, people like it. That's a tough one because it is hard to say or gauge. Um, Now, they've put out polls in the past about the economy, and people have participated, but the problem is the polls are usually like, hey, which of these two kind of bad options would you prefer? It's like you can have this bad option or you can have this worse option, which is kind of what it's felt like in the past, more than a genuine discussion. And I think it's hard to look at the community and go, yeah, everybody's happy with this. People have been unhappy and grumbling for 4 years. It's been grumbling and it's not caught Gaijin's attention. Again, we've kind of hit this point where Gaijin pushed too far, and now it's like the kid that you pick on at school, and you've beat him up for years and years and years, and you go, well, he's used to it. He he maybe secretly likes it or whatever, and then he just finally snaps, and now he's fighting back. He's not just gonna stop because you stopped hitting him. He's gonna keep going after you now because he's angry for years and years and years of bullying, and that's what's going on with the Warthunder community right now. They're pushing back, and there's years of frustration pent up from this game of in-game issues and economy issues and just being beat on by Gaijin, and the community's sick of it. And I think Gaijin needs to genuinely consider radical changes. I don't know if the community has enough steam in them to keep this going forever. I don't know. I don't know if there's any way of knowing that. We'll find out. I guess Gaijin can try to hedge their bets and keep the same system and try not to step it back. But when they're putting out news posts like this, they're certainly going to just keep the community fueled when they put out stupid comments, stupid articles. So anyways, yeah, saying that the community won't accept it, though, that's dumb. That's not true. There's no way for them to know, at least. Separately, a few words about review bombing as a method of communication. As many of our players know, we've repeatedly reverted both planned and already released large and small changes, including economy and progression. So this is true. Again, they have reverted stuff, but they've also just pushed stuff out in the past after the community said, hey, no, we're not a fan of this, or like, hey, we question why you guys are doing this with a particular vehicle or something. Like, now is not a great time to add it. It's like, they're not even saying, like, don't add the vehicle. They're just saying, like, hey, maybe add in another similar vehicle at the same time, or hold off on it until it's a little bit closer when it makes sense for that vehicle. We got that the last patch with the Panzer. The Panzer saw large negative reaction from the community. Well, some people were absolutely thrilled that there was something to kill CAS in ground matches. By and large, the vast majority of comments I read through on Gaijin's own forums was, hey, this is really, really dumb. Content creators like the Devil Dog Gamer even put out videos saying how overpowered and broken the Panzer is, and how it was ruining the balance of the game, and it was giving one side a considerable advantage. Now, this is getting a little bit away from the economy, and you're talking more in-game balance, which is kind of a different subject to an extent. But the point is that the community did, by and large, say, hey, no, we don't like this before release. And Gaijin didn't say, hey, we hear you, we're going to not put it in yet, at least. We'll go back, we'll look at alternatives so that there's something similar on, the other nation or whatever else, or counters to it. They went, we don't see what the issue is, and then they proceeded to put out a similar article to this, answering that and saying, like, here's all the ways it's better than what you guys actually thought from the initial teaser that we put out. And then somehow at the same time saying, yeah, we don't see what the issue is, and then ignoring your player base. So, yeah, sometimes you guys do listen, but a lot of times you guys will literally see that there's an issue, you'll respond to it, but you'll not actually act on people's fears or do anything to actually calm the community or help meet the community's expectations. So that's something for you guys to consider over there at Gaijin too. I mean, there's a great deal of things in here you guys need to look at, and you need to actually have your creative director play your game, because clearly he hasn't. Anyways, due to threads on Reddit, and with threads on the forums and comments on the articles on the site, we value our players and our game, not our updates and changes. Okay, well, again, I mean, you say that, but that's not what it feels like as a player. You know, it doesn't feel like we're valued. It feels like our wallets are valued, but as far as being a player, not so much. Yeah, it feels like everything you guys do is to get another few pennies out of us. If we know that the majority of the community doesn't want an update, we cancel or revert it immediately. Again, though, I mean, you'll have tons of people voicing concerns. You guys don't usually put out polls or anything. If you do actually see it and you respond again, like you did with the Panther, even if you're responding, you'll just go, well, we don't see the issue. The fact that you guys reverted the economy changes was a small miracle. It takes huge, massive backlash for you guys to do this. It was the same thing with the, I think it was the boosters, the permanent boosters that you guys were looking to get rid of. I can't remember if it was boosters or the wagers or whatever, but you guys were looking to limit how long those last, and you're looking to make them no longer permanent, which was obviously not for the benefit of the players. You said it was so that players were incentivized to use it sooner, but you know, that doesn't really help the players who are using them, who have a huge backlog of them because they get a lot of them or whatever. This, you know, prefer to sit on them and wait to use them at times that they're going to be more suitable. You guys as players recognized that and called you out, and you guys did end up backtracking on it, but it took a huge amount of effort for you guys to actually get to do that. When initially it came out, you guys seemed kind of inclined to ignore that backlash again. So, like, even if you have the scent of it, even if you recognize it, you guys don't go out of your way to actually try to see how the community as a whole feels about it. You'd rather just shove out the work anyways and excuse it. I guess, you know, ask for forgiveness later, I guess is the mentality there. I don't know. Even if some part supports or some part opposes, we prefer conservatively the do no harm principle, keeping the current status quo. Again, though, not necessarily in practice what's happening, but okay. Of course, a review on Steam is also a platform of expression. However, the majority of new players just look at the score evaluation and do not read the text of reviews and do not go into what they were left for. So review bombing does damage the game in that new players simply won't try it. Well, it doesn't raise their awareness of the problems you've noticed. If your goal is not to hurt the game, please use other less destructive ways. For example, leave feedback in our forum and suggestions specifically about the economy we're inviting in the feedback form. Also, review bombing will not cause modifying or nullifying in-game prices. If the game is shut down, no one wins. Well, guys, I hate to break it to you. There's a few things. Well, one, people have already reported being on your forums, making posts like this, and then the posts getting locked or shut down by your moderators. Now, the problem is I'm sure that there was probably one or two things that were said in there that was stupid, so you guys locked it down maybe. But the problem is that there's also a lot of moderators who will twist any sort of little thing and use it as like a personal attack on specific developers when there's genuine feedback that's good feedback for you guys. Two, YouTubers have making videos for probably years now about how bad the economy is, and you guys ignore that. Like, people have been trying the non-destructive ways, and yeah, you're saying that the in-game changes won't change because of review bombing, but you guys have already rolled it back, and honestly, you guys recognize you're not... I'd hope you're not genuinely as dumb as this article seems to lead us to believe. I'd rather just, you're being willfully ignorant, because at least then you might actually be willing to change even if you're trying to not to, but... The fact is like, yeah, if the game shuts down, you guys lose money, you're all out of a job. Like, Warthunder's your big money maker. It probably makes you a lot more money than Enlisted and Crossout does by a fairly large degree. And I have a feeling that if people start jumping ship from Warthunder, there's probably quite a few Warthunder players playing those other titles too who are probably going to jump ship from there too and encourage the community to do so. And they'll probably try to take down your whole company. So I would say, instead of saying that review bombing is not going to modify or nullify in-game pricing, maybe consider that it does. In fact, it already seems to have, because you guys reverted massive sweeping economy changes because of it. And yeah, the feedback is destructive to you guys, and yeah, it's if the game that we all want to succeed, that we want to be good and fun, goes away, that kind of sucks for us as the players. But does it suck any more than being nickeled and dimed to death for every single penny that we have in exchange? I would say that if that game that's nickel and diming us were to go away, we're all the better for it, as fun as that game may or may not be. Yeah, so anyways, radical revolutionary changes in the game that have been around for years are always very difficult, again, to make. Again, we did cover this already, and I do agree. They're difficult to make, but that doesn't necessarily make them bad or incorrect. So they will almost certainly break gameplay for significant parts of the players. We want to try and proceed according to the principle of do no harm and change the game carefully. However, if a topic receives a lot of support from the community, we do everything possible to support the players. We commit to follow the feedback even more carefully in the future and take into account when defining our plans for the development of the game. If you still have questions, ask in the comments, and in the future we'll try to clarify all unclear points. So, he's saying, again, you do everything to support the players, yet the players, very, very clearly, the community is telling you exactly what you need to do, and you guys put out this massive article, again, from your creative director of all the idiots that could have done this. That is, like, probably the worst guy, because, again, he's in charge of the direction of the game, and him saying that the exact opposite thing that's happening in games is what's supposed to be happening, clearly shows that you guys are either, one, being willfully ignorant to what's going on in game for the sake of making money, or you are genuinely ignorant and are too dumb to realize what's going on in your game, and that you are not capable of managing your own title properly. If this was just some PR goon who made this thread, well, one, this would be a really bad PR thread because, again, just serve to enrage your player base. But if it was just some PR goon, we could kind of understand them because, like, hey, it's just some random guy. This isn't the developer. This isn't the guy in charge. This is just some PR guy who maybe doesn't know what he's talking about fully. And he's just, you know, he's got these bullet points that were put together for him or by him on what sounds good to the community. But this is your creative director. This is the guy who says this is the direction of the game. And he is the one saying, this is our intended goal for the direction of the game. This is our intended goal for community support. And it's the exact opposite. Nearly every single bit of this. There's a couple of accurate points, a couple of fair points, but nearly every little bit of this is the exact opposite of reality. I'll leave it like that, guys. So, this is genuinely mind-boggling that they would put this out, like I said, guys. I am absolutely infuriated by this. This video shouldn't have taken this long, but I've tried re-recording it, and the recordings are only getting longer because every time I re-record this, I'm getting angrier, and, you know, there's, of course, more content coming out and stuff from other content creators I want to talk about, but I'm absolutely frustrated. Again, I am a 10-year Warthunder player. I don't play a huge amount of it on my channel just because I don't really have a super great way of including it into the content that I normally would do. You know, and something we've talked about more recently is me doing more content, but while I don't do a lot of content for my channel, I am very, very, very invested as a player. As my gaming outside of my YouTube channel goes, Warthunder is a very big part of it, and this post is so bad and so disconnected from the reality of the game and what we players experience and stuff, and, you know, it's insane, and the fact that Gaijin would put this out is crazy. Hopefully, yeah, I mean, hopefully the review bombing alone is enough to start reverting changes. Obviously, whatever Gaijin does do is going to take time, assuming that they do anything. There's, like I said, a lot of content creators putting out videos in regards to specifically this post, so there's a lot of people responding to it. Tim's Variety, I can't remember if I mentioned Enemy Sonar video. I've been watching his video. He put out a pretty good video on a few and then there's, you know, the sonar and stuff for the submarines themselves, or for the torpedoes themselves. Pretty significant sweeping ways that would probably. This is a pretty tricky game mode, though. Because you can't see where you're going, of course.
Even if some of those were
that's
implemented,
a pretty big thing. That makes it really difficult.
I do recommend you guys go over to Tim Variety's channel.
And then the other thing is, of course, you know, is you gotta get to these points or hunt down the enemy submarines. They're all listed as underwater hunting, but I guess, you know, the ones, if it's got points at all, it's not technically the underwater hunting, it's the capture and launch a nuke or whatever.
Aside from that, though, guys, if you do want to go out and participate in voicing your issues,
this should be
as I did. This was more of a rant. This wasn't the perfect video.
A lot of us pretty close together, and then some folks further away.
I want to call Gaijin's points where they're contrary to what we currently have going. But if you guys do go out there, I do implore you to do your best to articulate and make clear the points that you guys want to see. Try to be specific where possible.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool though to see potentially like World War II submarines and stuff actually being like integrated in though.
Like I did.
And seeing those actually in with the naval units and them overhauling the depth charges.
Saying, hey,
that would be my hope for this long term ultimately, is to see the depth charges change to actually be like depth charges proper. And
you know, I would definitely try to focus on the economy stuff first, less than the game balance. I mean, the game balance stuff
just kicked us out of that battle. That was weird
to see that stuff fixed.
I don't know what happened there. It just
I think if the economy were to be fixed,
didn't even say anything. It didn't say it got disconnected. It just left the match
than it currently does. But I do recommend that if you
guys
are
wasn't paying attention, it's probably accidentally canceled out or something. I don't know.
Making posts and leaving Steam reviews and stuff like that. If you guys
have 120, we've got
beyond
4 torpedoes and 12 Tomahawk land attack
potential
missiles.
Boycott starting on the 26th of this.
Obviously,
month,
the Tomahawk's not really
May 26th.
Very good for
not playing Warthunder for
naval combat, but
days or week
I'm kind of curious to see how the Tomahawks would actually work.
Talking about this, but I've seen more and more, so it seems to be kind of catching on a little bit.
Like
so I'll put it out there for you guys.
Naval match with like actual
I guess participate in a boycott
cruisers
of
and dreadnoughts and stuff like that.
And
could be pretty interesting.
Gaijin
We're gonna go to the surface. This will probably get us killed. We're gonna make so much noise if we can surface.
All right, guys. Well, I could talk on this subject.
Look at that. This is actually my first time seeing the submarines on the surface there. That's pretty awesome.
Alternative ideas, but there's already, like I said, there's been some great ideas from that Tim Variety.
Yeah, that's badass.
Other content creators.
Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm on YouTube right now.
Potty
mouth.
I did
man, that's awesome. Just imagine playing naval and you see this like lurking around.
Extra bit of awareness to
that would be so terrifying to see like a submarine like surfacing.
It matters too much. I feel like
getting ready to like launch a Tomahawk or something at you.
What's going on? But just in case there's even 1 or 2 people I can reach that don't know it.
So I guess it's Q&E is the ballasting
power
still.
I have here on YouTube.
There we go. That's pretty awesome. So I'm gonna try hanging out up here. Technically, I can get torpedoes from the bottom, so I gotta be kind of careful about this.
Droning on in monotone, on and on and on. But I do want to know. I want to hear what are your guys' thoughts on all of this. Of course, let me know. Let me know in the comments what you would want to see in terms of changes to fix the game, or if you guys don't think the game needs to be fixed. I guess then that's fair too. Do you guys think that Warthunder needs to change at all? And yeah, if you do, then let me know how and why.
Oh, shoot, I didn't mean to launch that.
And if you don't, just say that too. But beyond that, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you all share the video, get this out as far as wide as humanly possible. Take it easy. I'll see you all in the next one. What's up, YouTube? ODST General back again. I'm just cutting in really quick. There was a bit of an update since I ended my video here. Thankfully, I ran into some rendering issues with it, which was actually kind of fortuitous because it dropped in some circles, I guess, that Gaijin removed Steam as one of their listed platforms from their website. So if you go down to the bottom of warthunder.com and you look at the bottom of the page, you will see a list of all the different websites or platforms that Warthunder is available on to play. So you have Windows, Mac, I think that's Linux, Oculus, Vive, PS4, Xbox One, PS5, and the Xbox Series X. Steam was on there, and I got before and after picture from Wayback Machine for you guys. And they seem to have pulled that off of the site, which kind of indicates that they could be pulling the game from Steam. As of right now, it's still available on Steam, but that could obviously change, and it seems likely to. It would be kind of a weird response, I think, though, because What are they going to be stopping by pulling the game from Steam? People who see the negative reviews on Steam and then weren't going to buy it on Steam? I mean, if somebody's going to be buying it on like PS4 or Xbox, chances are they're not going to be looking at the Steam reviews for the game, right? They're going to be looking at reviews somewhere else. They're going to see all the Reddit reviews and all the videos that people are putting out of all the stupid stuff that they're doing. So it would be an unusual choice. Now, it sounds like there is some history with Gaijin and Steam where they're not a huge fan of it. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, though. Of course, I will update you guys, I guess, with any news if Warthunder plans to pull the game from Steam, since I'm now apparently covering this mess, as I hadn't really intended to, but I wanted to, I guess I wanted to put my voice out there and just, I guess, kind of add on to the dog pile, as it were. But yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on that. I might do another video giving my thoughts on what would, I think, be some fixes to the economy and everything. There's been a lot of people that have done debatably a much better job and given much better consideration than what I have, but we'll see. I guess if that is something that interests you guys, let me know. Take it easy. I'll see you all in the next one.